We actually started in this community of Alex, which is just about 15 minutes from here. So firstly, one of the reasons I love coming to LA is because I get inspired by meeting the students that are here, which has already happened this morning. And secondly, ever since I first came to LA, I've been saying, I'm sure LA is one of the best, it's going to become one of the best schools in the world. And I was very pleased to hear that it's participating in this event, and that process is happening, or that it really is being acknowledged as one of the best schools in the world. And I'm very pleased to be talking to all of you as well from other great schools. I've got 15 minutes, and I just wanted to tell you guys basically my story of where I come from, and then why I started Aweta and what Aweta intends to do. And the premise of Aweta, like Lucas told you, is that I went to Harvard. So I'm from Joburg, I went to Harvard, went to Oxford, and I think that there are people in Johannesburg, in South Africa and across Africa who are just as talented as the people at places like Harvard and Oxford who have never been given the chance. But if they do get the chance to achieve, and I'm particularly interested in entrepreneurs, if those entrepreneurs are given the same chances as what I got at Harvard or Oxford, then they can achieve the same things as people who get to go to those institutions. So I'm going to take one step further and sit like this. Okay. So I'll just start, and I think it's very important just to say my own personal background and where my sort of passion for starting Aweta comes from. My name is Yusuf, and so many South Africans don't expect me to look as I look. In South Africa, we're very into stereotyping, and so a typical Yusuf in South Africa has a lot darker skin than I do, maybe has a bit more facial hair, and so when I show up, everyone looks at me and a bit puzzled. Are you sure you're Yusuf, the one we're supposed to meet? And I say yes. And the reason for that is that my dad is an Indian South African guy, and my mum is a little Welsh white lady. And my dad's from South Africa, and when he was 17, I guess around the age that you guys are now, he wanted to be a doctor, and he felt like he couldn't become a doctor in South Africa under apartheid. At the time, I think in the whole of our province, there was only one Indian medical student. And so he left South Africa, he left without his family, and he went to England. And he was there for 18 years, and he became a doctor. And he met my mum there. But always he wanted to come back and contribute to the anti-apartheid movement. And so when that feeling became strongest in him, it was the early 80s. There was a Mixed Marriages Act. So people of different races weren't allowed to be married. There was an Immorality Act. So people of different races weren't allowed to even just be in relationships. But he was with my mum, and they wanted to have a child, and they wanted to move back to South Africa. So their idea of sort of cautious parenting was not to not come to South Africa. It was that they would have me in England, get me a British passport, so that when they moved back to South Africa, if they got arrested, I would be protected as a British citizen. So they had me in '83, and they came back in '84. And our family grew up in this really weird environment. I don't know how many of you guys have had a chance to see South Africa outside ALA, or have had an experience of this country, but it's very different now to what it used to be. And what it used to be was that my mum, so at one stage, every single member of our family had a different racial classification. So they had my brother and sister here. So they had, my dad was Indian, my mum white, me unclassified because I was born outside the country, so I somehow missed the net. My brother was other colored, other dash colored, and my sister was other dash Asian. All based on the color of their skin. And so my brother has this really nice chocolatey skin color, which he always sort of holds over me, that he has better skin tone than me, but at the time it was actually a problem. So my mum took him to the registry office, and you know, it's like a home affairs thing where there's a glass window there, and you have to hold, my mum had to hold my brother up there. And she held him up, and the guy looked and said, "No, I don't know what this is, can you please take him away? Bring him back next time, I need time to think." So took my brother away, came back a few weeks later, held him there. "No, I still don't know what this thing is." Gets on the phone. Said, "I don't know what this color is." He says to my mum, "What are you?" She says, I'm Caucasian." He goes, no, she says she's some other kind of Asian." So just to give you an idea of what a weird place it was to grow up, that's the kind of experience that my mum was this little Welsh white lady from Cambridge. She went to Cambridge, she had no business being involved in this, and I try to think of like what's the parallel now. I don't know if there's, maybe it's like going and raising a family in North Korea or something like that, you know, making that active choice to do that. My mum decided to do that, and they came back and they worked as doctors all through the 80s and 90s. My dad ended up being Nelson Mandela's first doctor when he came out of prison, and my dad was on the Truth Commission, and they worked in the townships as doctors. Not making money, not really getting paid at all, but contributing. And I never used to tell people that when I told about the story of Awetu. I used to just talk about the logic of the idea, but the more I've thought about it, the more I realized how important that is to the reason that I started Awetu, was that I came from this household, first of all, where I saw my parents doing this stuff, but second of all, where it was so personal for me that South Africa should be an equal country. That it wasn't a political thing necessarily, it was just that when my brother and I went to the park across the road, the lady at the park said, I could come in, but my brother can't come in, because I look white and he doesn't look white. And I was 5 and he was 2 when that happened, and I still remember that, you know? And so those kind of experiences just made it very personal for me, that this idea of a new South Africa where everyone's equal and everyone's given a fair chance needed to exist. And so when I left, I got to the end of high school, and I went to high school just up the road here in a place called Santon. And I stumbled into the Harvard application process. A friend of mine said, why don't you apply? And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. I've never been to America. I threw in my application on the very last day that applications were due, and I somehow got accepted. And I don't know if you guys have had this experience, whether you've even had this experience this week, or you've had it at your high schools, or in your lives. But I thought, there's no way I'm going to compete at Harvard. I was totally intimidated. I've only seen America on TV at that point, you know. But I was quite excited, because I'd heard that Natalie Portman's at Harvard. And then so I spent the next 8 months partly in terror of what's going to come, and being just intimidated, can I exist in that place? And partly just watching Natalie Portman movies and all the American Pie movies, and being very excited for an American college experience. and so I got to America, and you know, you get to a place and you start talking to people and you get settled and you get comfortable, and you start to realize, man, these people are just people. They're not these superhuman characters that you've seen on TV. They're just people. They have strengths, they have weaknesses, they get upset when their girlfriend breaks up with them, they fail tests, they do well at tests. Some are fun, some are not fun. They're just like the people at home. They've just had, you know, there's a combination of talents and opportunities here that gets them to this point in the world. But there's many people at home, and I was especially talking about the people in under-resourced communities in South Africa, where every day, you know, I realized this growing up, and I think South Africans see this, know this, sort of just intuitively, that there are people that you interact with every day in this country who are more talented than you at something or at many things, whether it's that they're smarter than you, harder working, more creative, better leaders, more resilient. You know that these people are here, but they're never going to achieve what they could achieve because of the way South Africa works, because of the way our society holds people back and fails to develop people. And so I knew that growing up, sort of, I had a feeling of that reality, but going across there and meeting these people who are going to be world leaders. You know, you know Eduardo Savran, that guy from Facebook. So he was in the same class as me when we were in an environmental economics class. When Facebook took off, and every day he was coming looking more and more tired because more and more colleges were asking for Facebook. I was like, what's wrong? He said, man, this thing's exploding. I thought, oh, that's nice. He's going to make a little bit of money. It's a cool little project that he's doing, you know. But the point is, Eduardo is a good example. You know, he's a billionaire now. He's just a guy. He's got strengths and he's got weaknesses, and that's a great example of how I felt, man. Bring some of these people that I know are this talented to a place like this, or at least with these opportunities, and they will achieve the same things. But it's never going to happen in South Africa. So I became convinced of this idea at Harvard, Oxford, Wall Street, that we have this kind of talent in South Africa, we're not developing it. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. Partly because I wanted to, you know, I think that using business as a means of achieving social impact and social progress is a really effective way of doing it. It's not the only way, but for me it's always been a really efficient way of achieving social impact, is to create something that's sustainable, that doesn't rely on donors to make it work. And the second thing was that What was my second reason for entrepreneurship? Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. That's the second reason. I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been starting things and growing things, and I wanted to do business. You know, that's just what I like to do. It wasn't just a theory of impact. It was what I wanted to do. And so I came back, and I had 60,000 Rand, which is about, it increasingly decreases because of the way the dollar's going, or the Rand's going against the dollar, but it's now about $8,000, no, $7,000. $7,000. That's all I had left from Credit Suisse. I spent all my money from Credit Suisse. And so I had to move back home. I was 27, moved back in with my parents. And we tried to start this thing with the basic premise. There are talented people. If we partner with them in businesses, we can both have a huge social impact. And if we develop them correctly, in the same way that Harvard and Oxford develop people, we can have a huge social impact and we can make a lot of money. Because economies are really just groups of people doing things, and if you can find the best people and partner with them at scale, you can make a lot of money as well. So Wetu was set up as a social business, primarily motivated by this need to have impact, this need to create a more equal society, the kind of society that I wanted when I was growing up, or that I still want today, but also one that's going to make profit, very importantly. And we started in Lucas's community of Alex. And I had no idea what I was doing, totally clueless. One of the first things we did was to go and set up a table in Alex. So it was a table, metal table. We took out like this beat up metal table from my mom's garage, old tablecloth which I grabbed as I was walking out that day. It had elephant print on it with holes in it, and 2 beach umbrellas which we had used in the last December beach holiday. And my pitch was to entrepreneurs: we can offer you world-class resources, the same as what Harvard and Oxford offers. But we got 2,000 applicants. We got 2,000 applicants over the next month, even though we knew absolutely not what we were doing. So I think, I'm partly just telling my story, but I guess 3 big themes here for you guys as you go into careers and life and entrepreneurship. 1, do something that has very deep roots in you personally, that you really believe in, and for very personal reasons. So like I said about my own personal story. The second is just get started. And another example for Lucas, to give an idea, all the work we do in informal communities now, every day we have teams of people going into townships. That's what we do, that's our business. On the first day, my co-founder said to me, I don't feel confident, we need to take a police escort into the township. So on our first day going into Alex, we went in a police car in front with blue lights, into the community where we're supposed to be spending the rest of our lives. If that doesn't strike you as clueless, then I don't know what is clueless. Guys, we're here, but we just don't feel comfortable enough to come with the police, come without the police, you know. So that's what we did. And we found a guy called, one of the first entrepreneurs I was just telling Lucas about, a guy called Chris Pinard, who was selling beers in Alex. And the first thing we did was cognitive testing. So let's see how smart people are. At least it's a quick filter. We won't look at track record, academic credentials, anything that normally matters we'll disregard, and we'll set up our own process. And so we did cognitive testing, and this guy, Chris, he's selling beers in Alex, and he's in the top 3% of cognitive ability in the world. And immediately, people start to take notice. They think, oh, am I in the top 3% of cognitive ability in the world? I don't know. I used to think all those people in Alex were just downtrodden and depressed, but now, this guy sounds like he might be smarter than me. And obviously, just being smart doesn't make you a great entrepreneur, but it helped for Wetu. It got people's attention because it was an objective metric. It wasn't just me saying, guys, I promise you, people are talented. And it was an indicator of some kind of talent. And so Chris came through our process. I'll tell you just quickly what Chris has done. I don't know how I'm doing for time. I think I have a few more minutes. So we didn't have any startup capital, 60,000 Rand, but we wanted to start a business. So Chris said, you know, in the big supermarket there in Alex, people stand in line for up to 40 minutes to get bread. They love the bread there, it's always hot. But yeah, it seems like a total waste of time. Alex is really dense. Why don't we deliver bread door to door in Alex? I said, okay, 20 bucks, $2, perfect, let's do it. Don't have any money, it sounds like a good enough idea, let's try. So he started doing it, and he got his business up to about 150 loaves a day. That was fine, nice, right? But then, The CEO of Kraft Foods, one of the biggest food companies in the world, a US-based company, I think, or maybe it's French, but it's a $60 billion company. They heard Chris on the radio. Through Awetu, he got some PR, people loved his story, they heard him on the radio, and they called us in and said, look, we're trying to distribute into Alex, we don't have great distribution and sales right now, we're also looking for a bit of market research. Can't you do this project for us? We've got like McKinsey and Accenture working on it, but we'd also like your insight, Chris Pinner. So we did that project for them, and that went well. And so yesterday, Kraft has now decided that they're going to outsource all their distribution. They don't want to do distribution anymore. And they've got 2,000 people doing distribution. And so yesterday, Chris went to a meeting with some of the biggest distribution companies in South Africa, and Chris Pinner straight to your door. And so he's going to be hopefully part of that process where he's actually helping Kraft to outsource their distribution and sales in township markets. So from 20 Rand, delivering bread door to door, on his first day he made 2 Rand profit. We were going to deposit the profit in the bank, but the bank charges to deposit were higher than the profit that we made, so we just didn't deposit it. And now he's on the verge of doing that. What he's also on the verge of doing, what he started already, is a program where he's going to use, so his story is from basic bread sales into a legitimate distribution business, and he's been featured on CNN, and he's got a real story and a real life, not that's the wrong way to put it, but like his entrepreneurial track, he's just on a different track now. He used to be selling beers, making 3,000 Rand a month. He's now making 20,000 Rand a month, and he's just on a totally different trajectory. And that's from bread sales. And so what he wants to do is to use bread to train other young people in Alex to enter entrepreneurship. And he's going to do that through a schools program, which I was just speaking to Lucas about. Hopefully they can actually work together, because Lucas wants to do a similar thing in Alex. They actually live 2 streets apart. And so that's what Chris is doing. So he's got the distribution side, and then he's got the schools program, trying to sort of pay it forward in his own community. And that's very important at Awetu, because what we're trying to do is not only create development through the money that people make and through the jobs they create and through the taxes they pay and all these other things, but also through the role models and leaders that they become. And so that's a very, that's a nice example of how Chris is trying to be that role model and leader in his own community. So back to Awetu's story quickly. We bumbled around doing things like that. In the first 2 years, didn't make any money. We got a bit of funding, some grant funding, about $400,000 from a company here in Sandton as well, and just figured out how to do this thing. And we worked with 6 entrepreneurs, 3 of whom left us, and 3 of whom are doing really well now, and actually official co-founders of Awetu. But on the back of the successes that we created, different pilots that we ran, we tried everything, not just developing entrepreneurs, but training, job placement, access to finance. We tried a whole lot of stuff. On the back of those, government really started to believe in our story, and about 8 months ago backed us with about $3 million to try to scale what we had done and to make a real impact. So what they've given that money for is for 500 entrepreneurs, to incubate 500 entrepreneurs and to create 1,000 new jobs. So we went basically from 3 years ago with that 60,000 Rand, we're now sitting with something more like 24 million Rand. And trying to do this project, we've gone from 2 employees to 24 employees. We have 40 employees by July. And if we can do this, I don't know if we can do it. It might just not work at all. But if it works, it'll be one of the cheapest job creation projects in South Africa, at 24,000 Rand per job created. In a country where you have 40% unemployment, that's a huge deal, And so, I guess the last piece of that message is, once you do something that of my message through the story is, once you find something that you love that has really deep roots, once you're bold enough to start it, if you really do believe in it, then just stick to it. And I think Fred Swanica from ALA, I think he spoke to you guys a few days ago. He thinks that one of the most important characteristics of entrepreneurs is that they just course correct. If you find something that's wrong, you course correct, you fix it, and you get on the right course again. And if you just keep doing that and you stay resilient and you don't get down, you'll succeed. And I think that's a really important third message. Is, find something you love, make sure you start, because you're not going to learn until you start. And then you never give up. Just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. And on that, I'll hand over to the better half of the stage.